Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be looking at our first look at the Explorer format since the release of Lost Caverns of Ixalan. We're going to be doing our meta breakdown, looking at the top tier decks and the best decks in the format for Explorer. Normally I split between best of 1 and best of 3. There's not a huge amount of data here and some of the decks are overlapping. So I'm going to kind of do a hybrid approach in terms of mentioning some decks for both. You can kind of use the best of 1 ones, tweak out a sideboard, remove the sideboard from the best of 3, play in best of 1 if you're kind of looking for that avenue. But the big thing is kind of Ixalan's introduced a lot of combo decks to the format. We got a couple different avenues that we can attack, and we're going to take a look here. We're predominantly going to get our data, what you see on the screen, through Untapped.gg, a companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates your win rates with other users, gives a whole bunch of cool stats. So we're going to start with that. We're also going to look at MTG decks for some other deck lists as well. You want to get started with Untapped, link is in the video description. I'll paste all these deck lists, timestamp them, so you'll be good there. You can just quickly jump to whatever you want and kind of pull the list. As always, if you can, drop a like, comment, and subscribe on the video, and we'll jump into it. So we're going to start with popularity of the day, and then we'll move on to the decks themselves. Popular deck doesn't necessarily correlate to a high win rate. As an example, Selesnya Angels is currently about 12% of the meta, yet it's got a sub 50% win rate. The highest win rate of the deck that I saw was like 52%. It's just a little slow for the format now. The most popular deck of the week is actually Azorius Control. We'll take a look at a couple versions. There's a Lotus Field and non-Lotus Field versions. Both have kind of their advantages, disadvantage. The Lotus Field, if you don't have Strict Proctor, or kind of the stifle effects, it makes it a little worse because you could potentially just sacrifice lands, but it has a bigger kind of top end game. There's the Yorion versions as well that attack the meta on a different angle. Abzan Explore is one of the new combo decks. Rakdos Midrange, Abzan Greasefang, Boros Heroic, Mono White Humans, and then Temur Creativity. We're going to kind of focus on some of the newer decks today, I think. Mono Green Devotion's been pretty much the same deck. The Mono White Humans list is pretty much the same humans list. You can play like Cavern of Souls if you're interested. You might want to look at like Containment Priest as a card to consider if you're running into a lot of these like Discover combos and stuff like that. But we see Greasefang was the highest win rate, kind of tanked. The deck that's coming up is Azorius Control in terms of popularity, going from as low as like 8% upwards to 12.9%. The win rates are all pretty much jumbled together, so not a huge kind of discrepancy right now between a lot of them. For the week, we're looking November 14th through the 23rd, so it's actually a little bit more than a week. Only 15,000 games of Best of 1 Explorer played, so not the largest sample size. That's why we're kind of doing a blended approach. First deck up in terms of win rate is Abzan Greasefang, 67.4%. So one thing that Untapped did was they dropped the cap of games, so we can search as little as 50 games now to get a little bit more diversity in the decks. It kind of pulls up, like in this example here with Greasefang, that we got a slight variation on kind of the stock build. So typically Greasefang, the kind of combo is you mill yourself into one of these vehicles here, cast Greasefang, reanimate, give it haste, crew it, and then attack right away, getting kind of that value. This version's got a little bit more early mill. It got some Stitcher suppliers, only 2 Thoughtseizes, a couple Seed of Hopes also help you mill. Can't Stay Awake can bring back Akiba. This version's also got 3 Return Triumphant. That's able to return one of your creatures, some Season Hallowblade. So the one thing that kind of strikes me with this one is maybe not as much early mill and more kind of discard from hand. Season Hallowblade, the Rotting Regisaur. Ashiok is a way to mill though. So kind of some interesting tech or interesting variation of the deck itself. Putting up results, 67.4, so hard to necessarily argue against it, but I do think just like a cleaner full Witherbloom, at least playing the full Stitcher in lieu of like Seed of Hopes, the full Grizzly Salvage could probably have some utility as well. Moving on, we go to Azorius Control, 62%. So this is a Yorion version of the deck, so 80 card special. So this gives you access, no Lotus Field in this one, Restless Anchorage in the mana base is another utility creature land, some Field of Ruins all mixed in. And then this one here, we have the new removal spell Get Lost included. This allows you to hit creatures, enchantments, or planeswalkers. So just a more flexible kind of removal spell in the 2-drop slot. Bunch of counters, card advantage. You're seeing things like Omen of the Sea, as well as Temporary Lockdown. Both can be blinked with Yorion to get double like ETB. Versions on the Full Force Supreme Verdict, 1 Sunfall, no Farewell. So it does limit in terms of a little bit of lack of graveyard hate for like recursive decks. Full Shark Typhoons, full Teferis, full Wandering Emperors, 1 Narset kind of mixed into there as well. But lots of cheap ways to interact with creature decks and kind of play a more long controlling game. Interestingly enough, the 5 minutes for Greasefang versus 5.7 for this control deck, so whoever playing this is playing it quickly. You then go to Rakdos Midrange. Wanted to highlight this one because we're seeing a couple new cards, or a little bit of a tweak. We see the Bone Horde Dracosaur in this just sub 60% win rate deck. So nice top end threat, 5 mana, 5/5 flying first strike. If you get to your upkeep, you get to start providing card advantage, gets you treasure tokens, gets you creatures, and then lets you play 2 cards potentially off the top of your library each turn. Single copy at the end as kind of multiple removal spells kind of in one. You get to Surgical Extraction and remove, and then kind of your smattering of just hand disruption and removal, fatal pushes, go for the throats, some graveyard hate and graveyard trespasser, Bone Crusher Giant, card advantage in the Bank Buster, Thoughtseize, Liliana for hand disruption as well. And then we see the Restless Vents, the new creature land in the mana base, to supplement like the Den of the Bugbears as well as the Hive of the Eye Tyrants. So usually with this deck, you're kind of going 1 for 1 a lot, and then you win with your future lands at times, or just like a Resolve Shieldred doing its thing. Up next, we have Abzan Explore, 58%. So this is a new pseudo-infinite combo. So with Amalia Benavides Aguirre, 2 mana, 2/2, whenever you gain life, it explores, and then when you destroy all creatures when Amalia's power is exactly 20, notably exactly 20, not 20 or more. So Wild Growth Walker, and then anything that triggers a life gain or another Explorer trigger. So you have like Lunarch Veteran, Wild Growth Walker comes into play, or like Prosperous Innkeeper gains you a life, you explore, that triggers Wild Growth Walker to gain you 3 life, then you explore, and it's basically a loop until you hit 20 power with Amalia, and then it destroys all other permanents on the battlefield, or all other creatures. Now note, if you start the combo again, it will, like if you're over 20, it's just, it'll result in a draw. Similarly, if this gets indestructible with like Selfless Savior, it's also a draw. So just be mindful, it's an infinite loop that can't be broken. I have a gameplay video if you want to see this in action. My list a little bit different than this, but they're playing Dina as well. So whenever you gain life, each opponent loses a life. So if you can get 18 iterations of the life gain, you can just kill your opponent that way there, or 20. So it's kind of a way even throughout without the combat damage to be able to mill or kind of burn out your opponent. The rest of the deck kind of finding your combo, getting combo pieces back, and protecting your combo. Then we're going to move on. So there's 2 kind of Discover combos that we're going to highlight today. So these are best of 3 lists, but can definitely play in best of 1. This one from Ali Eldrazi, but a lot of folks have been contributing to this. So this is effectively a 1-card combo in the sense that you cast a card, if it resolves, then your opponent taps out, you win the game. So Geological Appraiser has Discover 3. So everything in your deck other than Eldritch Evolution costs 4 or more mana. And the way that we're getting around that is by playing the split cards, which have a combined CMC. So you cast Geological Appraiser, it goes into Eldritch Evolution or Glasspool Mimic, which copies the Glasspool will copy Geological Appraiser until you hit Eldritch Evolution. Eldritch Evolution then hits Trumpeting Carnosaur, and then this keeps cascading with you, and you just keep getting more copies. If you get your Eldritch Evolution, then you get your copy of Trumpeting Carnosaur. Your last copy of Eldritch Evolution, you go and get a Doomscar Tyrant, which gives your entire board haste for the turn. And then you kind of kill out of there. You can also get Agulta, so if you have combo pieces in your hand, you can put them into play. You can also do Torrential Gearhulk, that can then flash back either Magma Opus or Creative Outburst, which are used early game to get you mana ramp. You also have Repudiate. So this is kind of Stifle, and then the other side lets you create a token copy. And now you can target this because of the instant half, and then you choose which half you want to cast. So you can actually create a copy of like Carnosaur or Torrential Gearhulk as well. And then Bedeck Bedevil is early removal and then can be used as like land destruction if needed, which is kind of cool. And then like your sideboard, if you're interested, it's a Kruga companion deck. So sideboard included if you're interested. From there, we go to the other Discover deck. So this one's a Quintarios. So similar idea, you're casting Quintarios, but what you're doing with this one is you cast Quintarios, everything in your deck is less than 5 other than clone effects. So you cast Quintarios, you discover 4. The Discover 4 will hit either Clever Impersonators or Spark Doubles, which then triggers Quintarios' ability to deal 2 and you gain 2. From there, Spark Doubles make clones, but they aren't legendary, so then you can have multiple instances. So you just keep copying, and then they each stack progressively deal more damage, and you kind of burn your opponent out that way there. You have Mana Ramp and Greater Tanuki and Beanstalk Giant, as well as Herd Migration to help you find lands. Trumpeting Carnosaur also lets you find combo pieces. Consign Oblivion is kind of a bounce effect or discard. That's a dual card that doesn't break the combo. Virtue of Persistence, same idea, some removal that doesn't kind of break the combo. And then Leyline Binding, since you're kind of full domain, you can flash this in for 1 mana. Another, again, Kruga Companion with some more effects here if you're interested. Or sideboard cards. From here, we go to Azorius Schooners. This one's from CJF Coder. They're 11-1 in best of 3 with this. And this is kind of, we see this in Historic a bit, like the blue-white affinity style deck. So we have Ingenious Smith, Mashiko's Thraben Inspector, the new Spyglass Siren. The Spyglass Siren is kind of like the blue Thraben Inspector. Makes a map token instead of a clue token. Some copies of Skrelv. Moonsnare Prototype for ramp or bounce. Portable Holes is removal. Shadow Sphere for trample. Staff can animate, as well as Ensoul Artifact can animate artifacts into bigger creatures. Metallic Rebuke for counters, and then Subterranean Schooner, one of the more popular cards from the new set. Only 1 mana to crew, lets whatever creature crews explore when it attacks. So it's basically a 3/4 that helps you explore every turn. You could also animate your Darksteel Citadel to make it indestructible with things like Ensoul Artifact. Again, sideboard, if you're interested, is included here. And then lastly, Simic Merfolk. So this was best 3 by another content creator, Jaffer. You can check him out on Twitter. And this is Merfolk, kind of tribal. Synode Scout lets you explore for 1 mana. Kumena Speaker is another 1-drop that gets bigger. Merfolk Trickster is kind of a tempo play. You can actually shut off, like it loses abilities, so you can get rid of some of like the activated or like the triggered ability or activated abilities, stuff like that, or just kind of static abilities. Silver Gill Adept for card advantage. Voidian Hexcatcher is a lord that can let you sack merfolks to counter non-creature spells. So it allows you to kind of protect the combo. 4 copies of Kumena. Taps for a whole bunch of different things. Tap another Merfolk, lets you, can't be blocked. Tap 3 untap Merfolk. You draw a card, tap 5, you put a 1/1 counter on each of your Merfolks. This kind of works with the combo. Sentinel of the Nameless City. This is just an efficient beater. 3 mana 3/4. Every number under the sun except the actual stats. 3 mana 3/4 vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you get map tokens. So another way to kind of explore. The Shana's like Stifle that's strapped to a Merfolk body. Collect a company helps you find stuff. And then we have Deeproot Pillage. So whenever 1 or more non-token Merfolk you control become tapped, you create a 1/1 Merfolk with Hexproof. Now this counts if you go to attack step, it sees all of them tapping at the same time, so you don't get the incidental. But with Kumeno, you can actually tap each individual to activate its ability. So it's each instance of tapping. So then you get multiple activated abilities there. So that lets you then kind of draw cards or kind of use the other modes as well and get a really wide board, especially with Lord effects. Removal or sideboard is included as well. That's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been enjoying, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.